It was supposed to be just another morning in the Verma mansion, but that was the day everything changed. The air shimmered with summer heat as a black sedan rolled through the gilded gates, its arrival unnoticed, except by her. Amara stood on the balcony, sunlight dripping through her silk robe when she saw him step out. There was something in the way he looked up, not with the obedience of a servant, but with the calm defiance of someone who had seen too much. In that silent moment, two worlds collided: wealth and humility, control and freedom, love and consequence. She didn't know his name yet, but deep inside, Amara felt it. Her life had just begun to unravel. Later that morning, Amara sat in her father's study, the weight of silence pressing on her shoulders. Mr. Verma's voice thundered in the background as he spoke to business partners over the phone, his laughter sharp and rehearsed. She tried to listen, but her mind wandered back to the man outside who moved with quiet grace, whose presence had disturbed something deep within her. She didn't understand it yet, but for the first time, she envied simplicity. Ravi worked with the precision of someone who found peace in order. Every motion, the cleaning cloth, the soft hum of the engine, was a meditation. Yet, whenever he sensed her gaze from the window, his rhythm faltered, if only for a heartbeat. In a house ruled by power, he carried himself with quiet strength, unshaken by luxury. But Amara's eyes unsettled him in ways he could not explain. That evening, the Verma family gathered for dinner, their laughter echoing off marble walls. Amara smiled, spoke when spoken to, but inside she was miles away, standing beneath sunlight, replaying a look that shouldn't have meant anything. Across the room, her mother noticed the shift in her daughter's eyes, but said nothing. In that silence, a secret began to take root. When the house finally slept, Amara stepped onto her balcony again. Below, Ravi closed the garage doors, unaware that she was watching. The night was still, except for the distant hum of crickets. For a brief moment, she whispered his name under her breath, testing the sound of it, tasting its forbidden sweetness. And somewhere in the darkness, as if carried by the wind, he looked up. The following week, Amara found reasons to leave the house more often. Errands, appointments, sudden needs for fresh air. Each time, Ravi was there, opening the car door with silent respect. Their words were polite, but the pauses between them spoke volumes. The hum of the road became their secret language, and every turn of the wheel carried a question neither dared to ask. Rain began to fall one evening as they returned from the market. The world blurred behind the windshield, and in that fragile moment she laughed, a sound Ravi had never heard from her before. It wasn't polite or practiced, it was free. He glanced at her, unable to stop himself. For a heartbeat, their laughter intertwined, and time stood still. A storm raging outside, but peace blooming within the car. Later that night, as Ravi parked the car, he lingered a moment before stepping out. He watched her through the rearview mirror, her silhouette framed by the mansion lights as she walked toward the entrance. Something about her hesitation at the door told him she didn't want to go back inside. It was a cruel irony. She, the one who had everything, and he, who had nothing, both trapped in cages of their own. A few days later, she found him repairing the car's headlight. Kneeling beside him, she offered a glass of water. "Work could be himself, I why." He hesitated before accepting, their fingers brushing briefly. A small, dangerous touch that lingered longer than it should. The silence between them deepened, heavy with awareness. For the first time, Amara realized that love doesn't ask permission. It simply happens, quietly and without reason. That night, unable to sleep, Amara sat by her window, replaying every glance, every word. In the quiet hum of the city, she realized she no longer saw him as a driver. He had become a voice inside her, an ache she could not silence. And somewhere, in the servant quarters, across the courtyard, Ravi stared at the same moon, wishing for what could never be spoken aloud. It happened on an ordinary afternoon that refused to stay ordinary. The road stretched endlessly ahead, sunlight spilling across cracked asphalt. Amara sat quietly in the back seat, her reflection merging with the motion of the passing world. When a stray dog darted across the road, Ravi swerved sharply, the car skidding to a halt by the roadside. For a breathless moment, silence filled the space between them, their hearts pounding in sync. She reached forward instinctively, her hand brushing his shoulder. The air thickened, heavy with things neither could say. When the engine finally stilled, Amara spoke first. Her voice trembled, not with fear but with truth clawing its way out. "You don't have to call me ma'am," she whispered. Ravi turned, his expression unreadable, a mix of respect and resistance. The world outside seemed to vanish, leaving only two souls suspended in the narrow space of the car. Every word she spoke drew them closer to a line neither could afford to cross. Days passed, but the memory of that touch lingered. Each morning felt different now. Charged, fragile, alive. Amara found herself waiting by the car before he arrived, pretending coincidence. Ravi avoided her gaze, knowing that one look could undo them both. But on the fifth morning, when she finally caught his eyes in the mirror, the truth could no longer hide. Sometimes, love begins not in words, but in everything one cannot say. That evening, rain returned, heavy, relentless, washing away everything but truth. Trapped beneath a roadside shelter, they stood inches apart. The sound of rain filled the silence they could no longer bear. "Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life?" she asked softly. He turned, rain dripping from his hair, and for the first time he allowed himself to look at her the way he truly felt. The confession never needed words. It was already written in their eyes. That night, Amara lay awake, her heart still echoing with the rhythm of rain. Every rule she'd been taught, every boundary, every warning had lost its meaning. In the darkness, she realized she had crossed an invisible line, and she didn't want to turn back. Somewhere outside, Ravi watched the mansion from the driver's quarters, the glow from her window flickering like a silent vow between them. Love had arrived, uninvited and irreversible. Rumors have a way of finding the richest homes first. It began with a careless whisper from a maid, a fleeting glance noticed by someone who shouldn't have noticed. Within days, the mansion felt colder. Eyes followed Amara wherever she went. Ravi sensed it too. The silence between them grew heavy with danger. One evening, as he waited by the car, Mr. Verma appeared, his gaze sharp enough to cut through air. Nothing was said, but everything was understood. Inside, Amara felt the walls closing in. Her mother's voice carried warnings disguised as affection. There are things you cannot afford to feel. But love had already taken root, and no rule could unmake it. When Arav visited for dinner that night, Amara could barely look at him. His charm now seemed hollow, his laughter brittle. Across the room, she caught Ravi's reflection in the glass door, a reminder of everything real. The next morning, Amara's father summoned Ravi. The study was silent but for the ticking of a clock. "I hear you've grown too comfortable," Rajan said coldly. Ravi didn't reply. He stood tall, refusing to look small. The older man's fury simmered beneath civility, his voice rising with each accusation. When Ravi finally met his gaze, calm and unwavering, Rajan's anger erupted into words that would tear their world apart. By evening, the mansion was alive with whispers. Servants moved in hushed tones, the household trembling beneath tension. Amara waited anxiously by her door, her heart pounding with dread. When Ravi appeared at the end of the corridor, she ran to him, her voice breaking, pleading for him to leave before her father returned. But he didn't move. "If I leave now," he said softly, "they'll win." And then for the first time he touched her hand openly. That was when everything fell apart. The shouting echoed through the mansion like thunder. Mr. Vermis' rage shook every room. Amara stood before her father, trembling but unyielding. Ravi was dragged from the corridor by guards, his protest drowned in chaos. Mira tried to intervene but was silenced with a look. And when the doors finally closed, Amara felt something inside her shatter. Not from fear, but from the sound of love being punished for daring to exist. Days passed after Ravi's dismissal, but silence had not left the mansion. Amara refused to eat, speak, or leave her room. The household carried on, pretending nothing had happened, though everyone felt the absence of the man who had become their unspoken truth. One night, Mira entered her daughter's room, candle trembling in her hand. "There's something you should know," she said softly. Her eyes held a secret older than Amara's heartbreak. Mira's words were slow, deliberate, soaked in regret. "Years ago," she said, "there had been a fire at one of Rajan Verma's factories. Chaos, smoke, and screams. A young man had risked his life to pull Rajan from the blaze, vanishing before anyone could thank him. His name was never known, until now. Ravi, the same man they had cast out in disgrace, had once saved the very life of the man who despised him." As Mira's story unfolded, Amara's heart fractured anew. She ran her hands through her hair, realization flooding her veins like fire. Every look, every gesture from Ravi now carried new meaning. He had never sought pity or love. He had simply lived with quiet dignity, carrying a secret that tied their fates long before they met. For the first time, Amara saw her father's cruelty for what it was: blindness born of pride. The next morning, Amara stood at her window, watching the servants clean the courtyard where Ravi once parked the car. Everything felt emptier. The walls, the air, even her reflection. She imagined him somewhere far away, unaware of the truth she now carried. A truth that could have changed everything, if only it hadn't come too late. That evening, Mira confronted her husband. The truth struck him like thunder, disbelief giving way to shame. Rajan stumbled back, replaying the memory of the fire, realizing the face of the man he owed his life to was the same one he had destroyed. "But pride dies hard. What's done is done," he muttered. Mira's voice, trembling but resolute, answered, "No, Rajan. What's done is killing her." The mansion was restless the night before Amara's engagement. Servants hurried through corridors carrying flowers and silver trays, while laughter echoed from rooms preparing for celebration. But inside her, a storm was rising. She stared at her reflection, feeling the weight of jewelry that glittered like chains. The world had decided her destiny, but her heart had already chosen rebellion. Somewhere out there, Ravi still lived, unaware that the woman he loved was being given away. When midnight came, Amara could no longer breathe. She stepped out onto her balcony, wind tugging at her veil, and whispered Ravi's name into the night. For a moment, nothing answered. Then the faint echo of thunder rolled across the horizon, as if destiny had heard her. She made her choice in that instant. Removing her jewelry piece by piece, she shed her gilded captivity and became nothing but a woman in love, ready to chase the impossible. Amara ran through the garden, her sari dragging through the dew. The gatekeeper froze as she appeared, breathless but unafraid. "Don't stop me," she whispered, and he didn't. Outside, the streets were silent except for the hum of rain beginning to fall. Every step away from the mansion felt like freedom, every heartbeat like a drum calling her toward him. Somewhere across the city, Ravi's name still lived on her lips. Meanwhile, Ravi sat alone at a roadside tea stall, the rain soaking through his shirt. He had tried to forget, but her memory haunted every drop that touched his skin. He looked up when he heard footsteps, soft, hurried, familiar. For a moment, he thought it was his imagination. But when Amara appeared through the downpour, everything inside him shattered and rebuilt at once. Love, in its purest form, had found him again. They ran toward each other without hesitation. The city, vanishing around them. For the first time, there were no words, no walls, no rules. Just the sound of rain and the beating of two hearts that had survived everything to find their rhythm again. But fate, as always, waited nearby. A flash of headlights, a screech of tires, and a scream that tore the night apart. Love had crossed every boundary, and destiny demanded its price. The night of the accident became legend within hours. By morning, silence cloaked the Verma mansion like mourning cloth. The rain had stopped, but the streets still glistened with what was lost. In the hospital, sterile lights hummed over two still figures, one fighting for breath, the other already gone. Ravi survived. Amara didn't, and in the folds of her saree, they found a letter sealed with her trembling handwriting, the final piece of her truth. Days later, Mira entered Amara's room, now untouched, frozen in time. On her daughter's desk sat a sealed envelope addressed simply for the ones who will never understand. Her trembling fingers broke the seal. Inside, Amara's words spoke with the calm of someone who had made peace with destiny. Love does not belong to the rich or the poor. It belongs to those who dare to feel it, even when the world says they should. When Ravi awoke, he didn't ask where he was. He already knew. In his chest, grief sat like stone, but when Mira handed him the letter, his tears fell not from despair, but from gratitude. Through her words, Amara lived again, her voice soft, forgiving, and filled with light. She hadn't written to mourn. She had written to remind him to keep living, to love still. Months later, the Verma mansion changed. Mr. Verma no longer barked orders. His steps grew slower, his gaze quieter. The car Ravi once drove was sold. The balcony where Amara had stood now draped with white flowers. Mira often found her husband standing there, staring at the horizon, whispering the name he had once forbidden to be spoken. Regret had turned him human again. Years passed, but Amara's story refused to fade. Ravi left the city, driving across endless roads beneath changing skies. Wherever he stopped, he carried her letter with him, folded, worn, but unbroken. In the final lines she had written, "If love ever finds you again, don't hide. Live for both of us." And so, he did. The world kept moving, but in the quiet hum of every engine and the whisper of every road, their love kept breathing.